Hello, everyone. We are live yet again, and this is going to be one of my authors' chats of the week. And I'll be keeping an eye out for my co-host to get on. And I've given you a heads up. Still have not figured out how to switch the grid format behind the scenes. I've been trying to figure this out. So to make sure both of us are equally spread across the live stream, but I am assuming it's going to do the same thing it's been doing the last couple weeks and shrinking my host. So we'll see. We'll see if I can figure this out. But if not, we'll get to the books, writing, publishing, and all that fun stuff shortly. So I hope that's a great thing. I recently got back, as in late Friday, from one of the world's biggest, definitely one of the nation's biggest indie conferences called Author Nation. It's held in Vegas every year. And so I just right now, my head is full of all different kind of information and new ideas and projects for 2025. And so I have to at some point sit down and come up with a game plan to see how many of these things that I want to implement, that I'm able to implement. Okay, I see him. Let's see if I can send the invite and we'll get things going. Did we do it? Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi, let me turn up my volume since I obviously forgot to do that a little earlier. I hear you, I do not see. There we go, perfect. And I will ask you off the top because I don't know why about 2-ish, probably 3 weeks ago now, the format changed on my screen and I cannot figure out how to delete the extra space.
Well, that's okay. They change stuff all the time.
That's very true, and it's just unfortunate because I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I want us to look like, equal sizes on the thing.
Sure. A few months ago, they used to do this like AI enhanced image, and it made all the photos I put up just look like exponentially better. And then it was there for like 3 months, and then they rug pulled it. So I was very sad to see that go. I hope they bring it back.
Interesting. I don't even know if I noticed that, but this platform is also known of testing out with a smaller population any features, and then if it works well, it goes bigger and bigger. And so it's always interesting because someone will talk about this function. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, you don't have it. I'm like, no, I guess I wasn't special enough to be selected.
Totally. You were just talking about Author Nation. I'd love to hear more about that. That just looks like such a good time. I've had my eyes on it for years.
Oh, it is definitely fun. And of course, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, as I kind of said briefly a little moment ago, is Author Nation is definitely one of the nation's biggest conventions for indie authors, if not one of the world's, arguably. And but it recently, as in this year, rebranded. So it has new people running it. And so in many regards, it was a little bit like a young con, because even though they have been running this for years, there were definitely some kind of changeover hiccups where they just need to make it a little more smooth. But outside of that, it is such a wild event. There's so many resources. I'm glad. And so many resources available for authors if you take advantage of them, because technically it's a 4-day event, and the way they arrange it, the 5th day is kind of a different event, but they kind of overlap, where if you're going to Author Nation, you can attend what they call Rave, and that one's kind of a book sale day, and it does have also different seminars and readings throughout that day as well. But if you've never gone, and you really, for anybody out there who is truly interested in pursuing indie authoring, being an indie author, and want to take full advantage of everything, it's a great thing to do, because day one, it's a vendor hall for any resources imaginable, from Ingram Sparks, Draft to Digital, Book Vault, all these wonderful platforms, Story Origin, et cetera, so on, et cetera, so on, et cetera, so on. And you get to meet them, talk with them. If you have issues with anything on the tech side, they will do one-on-ones with you. So that's really neat. And then for the next 3 days, it's panels and seminars on all sorts of topics. So pretty cool stuff.
Fantastic. I'm planning on going one of these years.
You should. And of course, one of the best things about it is that you get to connect with people who are your peers, who potentially can be your mentors, who
Oh,
have like all levels of success, and the networking and just the friendships you develop is also really phenomenal. So highly advise it. Highly advise it. But for you, since this is the first time you're being one of my co-hosts, I would love you to introduce yourself and what you write for everybody.
I'm Colin JD Crooks. I write epic, dark fantasy with heavy progression inspiration and military fantasy inspiration, right? So I've written this series. I'm currently writing book 3, which is called Awakened in my series, and it's the Shards of Aetherius. And book 1 is about a hard-bitten, remorseless warrior on a redemption arc in the backdrop of this multi-nation war, right? He is tasked by his god, who is a living god in the world. You know, they rule in place of kings. And he's tasked to go and kill an ally, slay the goddess of nature, steal her soul, and bring it back to his god so his god can transcend the mortal realm. However, not everything goes according to plan.
Ooh, I like that. And I love all the genres and subgenres you said, because I've written in most of them, not necessarily the progression style, though I'm planning on progression going forward, a dark fantasy progression. But no, those are a lot of fun. And yeah, you sold anything dark fantasy, and I'm there. I'm all about it.
Fantastic. Tell me about what you write. You've
So
written multiple series.
I have different series, and depending on the series, they range from young adult all the way to adult on the second world, so the epic high fantasy side of things. And so I have one series for my young adult side. It's Isekai Portal Fantasy, but it's also a clean fantasy. So even though there's high action, lots of twist, quest characters go on, it's also on the clean fantasy side, so that you won't get the swearing, you're not going to get totally graphic violence, and you're not going to get any spice. But it's wise. I wanted something a little more on the family-friendly side, so the younger side of YA. But then moving up the line, my debut series is called the Incarn Saga, starting with Asara's Claws. There are 4 books, and they're a new adult war-based shifter fantasy. So again, the military fantasy, dark fantasy side of things, and about a kingdom on the verge of war where they draft pretty much an army of shapeshifters to help fend off an oncoming threat. And then my other series that will be finishing tomorrow. Yes.
Whoa.
It's
Congratulations.
thank you. It's an adult novella series, and it's a dark retelling of Nordic myth. And so by tomorrow, there'll be 16 of them, and the whole series will be finally complete.
Holy cow, what a huge achievement. That is amazing.
Thank you. It's taken a while, but we got there.
Yeah, totally.
But
Like how long are your books? 16 books?
well,
Like, how
that
long
series
is
is a novella series. So
Okay.
one of the perks of doing novella series is that I could release multiple a year because they're smaller. And so they're kind of like 22 to 25,000. So kind of more toward the middle part of what makes a novella that length. But quick reads and they're great for people who don't have that time to dedicate on a 1,000+ page book, which I love the 1,000+ page books, but not everybody has that time to sit down and read.
And after a Brandon Sanderson Way of Kings, you need a palate cleanser, right?
Yep, exactly.
You need something short, sweet, a standalone to refresh yourself and, move into the next epic series.
Exactly. So for your books, it sounded like you are a series writer as well.
Yes.
How many do you have in your series currently, and how many are you planning to have?
I have a prequel novella which follows the love interest, and that is a dark fantasy thriller. And that one is available on my mailing list at colinjdcrooks.com. And then I currently have 2 books published in the Shards of Aetherius, Arisen and Blood Mage, and I have a total of 7 books planned for the series.
Very nice. That's great.
Yes. We will see if it actually is 7 books, because my original plot outline for the series, it was a 5-book series, and the plot outline for book 1 has morphed into 3 books because I've just naturally reached these climaxes, these conclusions that would have just felt artificial and forced to try to cram in, right? So for my third book, Awakened, I didn't know how I was going to do it, right? For them to get from point A to point B to fight the final battle. But it like it's just deep, rich storytelling. You really get to know the characters, right? The magic system just gets more and more complex, and it's been a nice, like, it hasn't been easy, but it has definitely been an enjoyable ride, and I'm really excited to share it with everybody.
So how long, I mean, how when you're planning out an in-depth, because anybody who especially focuses on epic fantasy, there's so much that goes on. There's, like you said, the magic systems, the character building, the world, the politics, etc., so on. How much preparatory work did you do before you're like, okay, I'm about ready to sit down and start writing?
I plotted out the entire series, right? Because I had read The Wheel of Time, and I'd read it more than once. And it's only on multiple reading The Wheel of Time that you really see the depth of the foreshadowing. And, he'll set up book 4, 5 in book 1 and 2, right? Like, it's really, really well done and amazingly well thought out. And I wanted to have that same sort of thing where someone could finish book 4 and feel that deep satisfaction, and maybe be able to maybe go back and read and see those things set up, right? So, I had written out the plot outline in a 4-act structure, right? If you know how to do that, right? So that 5th book or 4th book will be that middle point of the story.
That's fantastic. And yes, I'm actually working my way through Wheel of Time right now, and about halfway through the 6th one. So I still have some halfway through the 6th one, yes. And so I still have a few books to go. But no, it is very rich and immersive way Jordan was doing the storytelling. And I mean, that's why he developed the fandom he did. Here in Georgia, there is a con called Jordan Con, named after him, because there's so many people that love that classic style fantasy, that sweeping, rich worlds like Tolkien and et cetera and so on. So those are always fun. But then again, I'm biased because that's what I enjoy. That's kind of what I write. And yeah, I love that. So what was it that inspired you for this particular story? Like, where did that idea come from?
It came from a few different places, right? One of the main inspirations was Darth Vader, right? I really liked him as a character, and I was really disappointed with how the character was handled in episodes 1, 2, and 3, right? The second trilogy we got. We were supposed to get this downfall of a virtuous man who hunted down all the Jedi and eradicated them. And we got a political love story instead, right? A lot of people really loved it, but it's not what I wanted. So I set out wanting to write that story. And I also really wanted many of the fantasies I've read, especially the big popular ones, start out with a man of virtue, and he's just always virtuous, right? I wanted to have the character progression be from someone who is truly corrupt, almost a complete sociopath, who is willing to do anything in service of his king, and then build up to this virtuous person who has been dragged through the mud, who has been forged through the fire, into a man who has looked straight into the darkness and come through and can then make the choices because he knows the repercussions of his actions, right? So that was one of the inspirations, and that book 1, I really wanted to make the character progression like The Last Samurai, the movie The Last Samurai. I found that deeply satisfying. We have a hard-bitten warrior, and then through events, he goes out among the people, and, it changes his entire perspective of the things he's done in the past, right? So yeah, totally. That was some of the inspiration. I mean, a lot of it is also like Joe Abercrombie, Robert Jordan, Stephen Erickson. I really loved Stephen Erickson. So yeah.
I love that. Well, as an epic fantasy writer, more often than not, because it's usually what people expect, you write multiple POVs. So how many POV characters do you have, and who's your favored ones? I won't necessarily force you to pick one, but how many do you have?
That is why I classify my book more as dark fantasy than epic fantasy. Although there is huge epic fantasy inspirations, right? It is a single POV. You're seeing
Okay.
straight through the eyes of the main character because I wanted that limited point of view so
Hmm.
that you are in his head, hearing him make these terrible, atrocious decisions and justifying every action to himself.
I love that. And so far, I'm kind of like you in that sense because my first three series are all single POV, even though they have huge casts of supporting characters and others that could arguably be qualified as main characters. It's just they're not a POV character. But I do like that kind of that limiting from limiting the character, limiting what the reader experiences through the eyes of whichever character you have chosen. But it does also put some interesting challenges when you're trying to develop a extremely rich world and you can only follow now that one character. And so do you have any challenges with that kind of thing where you retrospectively like, oh, I wish I could expose my readers to this over here, but since I only have one POV character, I can't.
Absolutely. And I like the prequel novella is in a different character's point of view, right?
Mm.
So I think I am probably going to do more of that, where I write a novella or I have a few ideas for standalone books, like shoot offs from the main series, where I will just write a book from that main character, from that character's point of view. And I think the next series I write will be multi POV.
That's great.
Yeah.
It is something, it is a fun challenge to get into. I've only dabbled with multi POV for a short story and, or well, actually I did it for a standalone book that I have yet to kind of move forward. It's one of my on the back burner projects, but it was kind of a challenge because I picked three different characters and I was like, let's see how I can head jump and tell the story from different characters at different locations and see how I feel about that. And that process, though it was very different, it was a fun challenge and I liked it enough where I can now feel comfortable going forward and maybe choosing longer projects with multiple POV because up until then I was very hesitant. I was so used to just one.
It really ratchets up that complexity.
Absolutely. And I've talked to other authors who are, I have a cast of 12 and I'm like, how do you keep up with everything? How do you do all these timelines and everything? But it sounds like since you are a planner, you've pretty much hashed out, the what, the why, and how to get your character and the storyline from point A, B, C, etc.
I would call myself a plot gardener rather than a full-on architect, right?
Okay.
I have a plot scaffold with events that need to happen, and then how I get there, it grows organically and naturally. Like for my book two, I had to throw away 30,000 words just because this story went in a different direction, right? So, and how about yourself? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Are you somewhere in between?
I'm somewhere in between. I found the term plantster charming because you plant the ideas and let it grow. And so I like that. But same idea. It's that I do try for most of my works. I already know where the end game is. I know the main plots. I know the main characters, etc., so on. And as I'm writing the story, things will reveal themselves, backstories, subplots, etc., new characters. And that is a lot of fun. Though I do have this one project that's a book 6 of a series, and there's so much going on because it deals with a magical multiverse that my eyeballs are kind of crossing over. And I realized with that project, I'm probably going to have to step back and plot out that story a little more so than I've done in the past because that one is getting very complex real quickly. And woo!
Totally. Like for me, I found like I have to do that first draft, and then once I get to the end, I can work backwards and make all those little places make sense. Do you do that, or do you do something different?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, zoned out. I did just come back from a conference, so I'm here, but not necessarily 100%. I'm like 85% here, so sorry about that.
Totally cool. Totally cool. So I find that my first draft is really, really messy, right?
Mhm.
It's a structure, and I get to the end, and then once I'm at the end, I have that moment of clarity where all those
Okay, okay.
pieces I was trying to fit in together just fits together in this ultimate Jenga moment, and then I can move forward. Do you have a moment like that, or?
Surprisingly, most of my first drafts are relatively pretty close to the final project, but clearly that's changing because I'm still have a stumbling block with one series. So I feel like going forward it's going to be a case by case, depending on the story, depending on what it needs. Again, thankfully, I like having, and that's why I write, and it takes me a while to write because what I put down on paper again is relatively close outside of a little polishing with grammar and some editing, etc. But storyline, it's usually pretty much there. And sorry, I have a phone call. Oh, there we go. And but that's not the case for everybody. So it's
I
just a
am
way
so
my brain has
jealous.
worked.
I hate you just a little bit for that.
Don't hate me.
It's okay.
But no, it is, and that's the thing is the editing process for everyone is going to be different. And that's fine. And the editing process for every book and series is going to be different because I have a number of works that are on the retelling side of things, be it Nordic myth or Grecian myth. And for me, the storyline's already there. The plot is there. I'm just retelling it in maybe a fresh way or a little more enriched way, but those stories are there. Now, any of my series or books that are truly my own, that's where it gets, a little more complicated. I need to spend a little more time focusing on where we're going with it because I am inventing the story. So
Yeah.
I think it just depends case by case on what you're doing.
And you brought up a couple of times that you draw on a lot of like Nordic myth and Greek myth. Like, how deep is that in your story? Is it like set in Norse times, or?
For my Nordic series, the one that finishes up tomorrow, yay! The Guardian Speaker, it is highly immersive Nordic myth. I spent years and years researching the history of the peoples during the Viking era and their belief system and their culture, etc., so on. So it literally drops the readers. What if you were living in their cosmology? So you're living in Midgard. What's happening? And you get that sweeping adventure where eventually you kind of go and hit all 9 realms of Nordic myth and see all the big figures. But I do tease the readers along because instead of showing Odin and Thor and Loki right away, I keep them out into like the last few novellas because I'm like, I want you to experience everything else that this mythology has to offer, and we'll hold the big flashy ones out till the very end.
Sweet.
Yeah. So do you pull from any myth or lore, or is it just you're pulling just from influences of more modern fantasy, modern?
Norse, Greek, and even Roman legend and myth is really heavily inspired in my books, right? Like the goddess of nature is Yggdrasil, and like the afterlife is a physical place they can see in the sky, right?
That's great.
And in my book, the character, I don't want to give spoilers, but you know things happen to him and he goes to the afterlife and then comes back, right? And you know yeah, so there I have a lot of gods in my book as well, and they are inspired from Greek, Roman, and Welsh.
I think that's really neat because my debut series, the one about shifters and that kind of dark military fantasy, it's I created a pantheon, 12 deity pantheon for my shifter people, and so I kind of once I was going through the publishing process of those books, I on my one of my blogs was kind of writing where I pulled the inspiration and why I chose to have a god of this or a deity of this versus something else, and how I kind of finagled and split hairs with some, or created new, not 100% novel, but new-ish concepts of what a god could embody. And so that was again a lot of fun because you're pulling from various source material, your inspirations, and creating new fusion and allowing people to enjoy it. So, but the fun of fantasy.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite parts about like Greek and Norse mythology is that they didn't have the ideal that gods were benevolent back
Hmm.
then, right? They were tricksters. They were jokers. They would be spiteful. They would be
Oh yeah.
mean if the
Oh yeah.
wind came across, right? So that's the way I've written the gods in my book, is that they're very much like real people. They
Hmm.
live, walk the earth, and if they're not having a good day, everybody around them is going to feel it.
Yes. You want them to have a good day.
Yeah.
Oh yes, but no, that is a fascinating thing because a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of beliefs that you are polytheistic, the deities are not. They're imperfect. They're imperfect creatures. They're almost more imperfect than humans in many ways because they're a little more emotional and, of course, thus a little more volatile because you have all this power. And if you're highly emotional, whatever way, be it jealousy, rage, or whatever, what have you, uh, the repercussions were that much more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of power, you've mentioned shifters and things. You have a magic system in your books. Like are they like what sort of shifters are they?
For my new adult series, the Incarn Saga, they're animal based shifters, and they're just, for me, it's more of a genetic thing. They're born with this ability. I mean, they don't understand genetics, but they're born with the ability, and they can only turn into one animal form, and depending on their animal or their dual form, reflects some of their physical attributes and their personality attributes too. So I have, for instance, in the first book, there's this really young, extremely vocal, chatty young boy, ruddy hair, big buck teeth, still having kind of the plump, cute cheeks of being, relatively young. And his dual form, his animal form, is a red squirrel. And just because he likes it, and so they kind of go hand in hand with each other. But as far as magic, there's surprisingly low magic in there. There are certain special arcane artifacts that can, there are weapons that do have the ability to shift along with the animals. For instance, my main character is given one set, and they're essentially bear claws or brass knuckles with claws off of them. And when she transformed, they gild her actual claws because she's a white tigress. And so there are a couple of those things, but that one wasn't a very complex magic system, thankfully. And then flipping over to my magical multiverse, the sky's the limit. It get a little out of hand. No, but it's a lot of fun. But how about you? Do you have a very stringent magic system? You were talking about the idea of progression fantasy, so that does sound like you have a strict system of how characters more or less level up.
I do. I have it starts off soft. I've got multiple magic systems. I've got rune magic, which is a faith-based magic where people inscribe like a Norse rune in the air, and then it does a thing based on their faith and their god they're aligned with, right? And then I have imbued weapons, which is enchanted weapons, and then there's the blood magic, which can only be used by a returned or an immortal, right? And they gain once they go to the afterlife and come back, they come back with a piece of the afterlife in their soul, which then they grow into their own realm, right? And so they have to consume blood and they consume the souls of those around them that die, right?
Wow.
And so for them to use magic in the world, they spill their own blood and allow the spiritual force in their realm to take shape in the physical world, right? So it's that concept of matter can never be destroyed. It can only be converted from one shape to another, right? So the blood allows the spiritual to take shape, and then they go throughout the world to like lava pit, and they draw in the heat from the lava, or they consume the soul of a wolf, and then they can summon the wolf, right? And with each book, it's going to get a little bit more complex. It starts soft, and then as the book progresses, I have the blood magic, and then in book two, it's going to expand, and there's going to be more of that inner realm in there, right? So yeah, it's interesting.
So when is your next release? Do you have a planned date? Do you have a goal in mind? Because again, you're wanting to continue the series. Do you have an idea of when you're going to release your next work?
I I am very close. I have moved the bar multiple times. I had originally thought that I would be done my first draft, but it keeps going, and I am at the climax. Blades are punching in through people, and bad things are happening, and so I'm almost at the end of draft one, and so then I'm hoping probably 6 or 8 months from now, I will be able to publish because I do multiple drafts. I do 3 drafts per book and then a beta read, and then the editor has it, and then I can publish, right? So
Yeah, that
that's
makes
what I'm
total
hoping.
sense. And it's you want to do right by your story. I say this a lot on these. Oh, you want to do right by your story, so never rush yourself. If it takes 3 years to write the book, it takes 3 years to write the book. You want to create a quality project. And if you're one of those miracle people who can spin out a book, multiple books a month, kudos to you too. I want to know your ways, but
Yep.
it is, you want to release quality works, and you want to always be improving. And so take your time, do what you need to do, and never judge what someone else is doing and what you're doing. And we are all different.
Yes, totally. I wish I could write faster, right? I have a business, I've got a family, right? And I'm sure a lot of other indie authors have those things. And, as my family gets older, I'm hoping that, in a few years, I'll be able to have more time or be able to maybe one day make that amazing shift to part-time or full-time writing.
Mhm. And that's what I think a lot of readers sometimes forget, is that not every author is a full-time author. And we're also people, so we have other hobbies, surprisingly. we have other obligations, and we can't be most of us cannot be behind the computer or typewriter or whatever you use all day every day. I mean, a lot of us wish we could.
Totally. And then at the same time, you're fighting other problems. If you're behind the keyboard pumping out 5,000 words a day, right, you're going to burn out, right? Your creative well is going to get empty, and you're going to have to find other ways to fill it.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, I have something to show you now. Think about this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so coming back from the writers conference, there were a bunch of like knick-knack things they just put out for anybody who wanted. So I came back with my own writer's block.
That's pretty funny.
It's my new desktop writer's block that I can stare at every day and hope the writer's block stays here and not here.
It can be a magic talisman. You can be like, take my writer's block. And you can
Exactly.
literally pick it up and throw it across the room, and boom, then it's way
It's
gone.
squishy. It's not going to hurt anything. I can throw it at the wall if I need to. And
That is a really great idea. I love that.
it put a smile on my face, and I was like, okay, that I will bring back. That I will definitely bring back. But yeah. So okay, what do you do in the terms of the dreaded word marketing? Like, where are you on? What are you doing to try to reach new readers or let readers find you? How are you doing that?
The biggest success I have had has been TikTok,
Hmm.
right? God bless this community and everybody here. Thank you so much. I have tried Facebook ads, and it is still a work in progress that I am learning, right? And I'm working my way through a course I just bought, and hopefully that I'll be able to experience some success there, right? But other than that, I do my newsletter and I do Facebook, right? I would love to be on X and Instagram and all the platforms. But again, it's the more I do on the marketing side, the less time I have with either my family, my exercise, or my writing, right? And so
Yes.
it is that pruning metric. I've had the most success here on TikTok, and so that is where I put the majority of my effort in.
And that's very important, because for young writers, there are definitely a number out there that feel like they have to be everywhere all at once. And personally, I tell them, don't do what I did. Be better and pick and choose. Find a couple places that the social platform is something that you're enjoying and it makes sense to you because they're all different. And then if you want to expand later, but don't jump on and try it all at once, because that is a big thing to burn out and stress. And I'm on a lot of platforms, but it's taken me a while to figure out how to repurpose stuff. I repurpose all the time, because if I'm taking the time and energy to make it on one platform, eventually you're going to see something very similar, if not the same thing, on another one, because you have a limited amount of time. And I love talking with people. I love doing these lives. I love, chit-chatting with readers, but creating content takes a lot of time, and it could be writing.
Totally. Hi, Will. Yes, it really does. And the amount of effort and thought it takes to put in a book review, right? Because you want to present yourself in the best light. You want to think it through. And, I don't know if everybody else, it seems like some people are just able to put out a really amazing book review just completely off the cuff, but that's not me, right? So I do put a lot of thought into the things I put up on TikTok, right? And have you told me where you have found the most success with marketing?
It's still here. I would say, the Book Talk community, as you literally just said, it's such a fantastic community. And maybe it's because I put the good vibes out there and only try to focus on the good vibes, that I don't see a lot of the drama. And I know some people it exists, but I feel like the people I have met and hung out with on this platform they're so nice. They're so neat. They're so welcoming. They're so willing to help, be it, with resources or knowledge, or just to bolster, you if you have a down day. But that's one of the things I love here. And, I'm always trying to learn how to better market myself. And, but I see a number of sales come through this platform and route from people who find me here. And I love that.
Yes, totally.
Do you actually, since I just glanced up at the time, and the time's starting to speed by around 40 minutes in, it's going to blur. There are always some questions I like to make sure I ask, because if this platform's nice, I will repurpose this on my YouTube channel and put all your contact information down below. So if someone comes back, they can, check information if they missed something live, or if they totally missed the live, can listen to it again, or the first time. But with that said, you did mention that you're here, you're on Facebook. I think you said a newsletter. Is there any other place that people can find you? Do you have your own website, or is it pretty much here, Facebook, and newsletter?
I'll have my own website, colinjdcrooks.com. And that's got, my map. It's got a glossary for my books, right? Yes. I'm planning on putting up some other little goodies and just, some images of the different things I've thought about for my books, right? So yeah, totally. My website's pretty great. I'm on Facebook and here.
That's perfect. And then another thing, which is always very pertinent, is where can people buy your books? Are you exclusive through Amazon? Are you wide? Do you sell direct? Where can people buy your books, and what formats are they in, or format?
I am in ebook and print, and you can find my stuff on KU or Amazon.
Fantastic. Yeah, KU, especially if you're a person who writes on the meatier size of books, that does have a lot of benefit. And I know on the romance and romantasy side of things, a lot of people do well with Kindle Unlimited. So yeah, great.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those choices where it's like I have to streamline my efforts because of the way my life is structured right now. Running a business, having a young family, right? I don't have time to put things in boxes and mail it to people, right?
Yeah, no,
and if I did, I wouldn't be making TikTok content or Facebook posts or anything like that, right? So, like Jeff Pantanella has this really great omnibus that he sells directly from his website, and it's got 3 books. He's got 2 of those, and that's just real inspiration. And, I don't know, I can't remember the name of the series, but this guy, also a dark fantasy author, just put out this really beautiful Kickstarter hardcover, and that is something I really want to cross the bridge one day, is a nice, really nice hardcover. So yeah, and those things, I believe, once I cross that bridge, I will sell from my website, but that's not today.
Check out Book Vault. That they're one of the companies that I'm looking into. so that next year, some of my 2025 goals is to run a Kickstarter for a special edition of my Viking series and have a kind of a fun, almost exclusive version of it, which would be really neat. But yeah, I mean, those are things that, again, they take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. If you don't have that, that's fine. You can still do very well as an author without the extra stuff. But yeah, you just have to do what's right by you. And it was interesting at the conference talking to a variety of authors who do sell direct, because I do, that there are different kind of sweet spots. It's, if you're beginning and you're only selling one every few days, yes, it's easy to wrap and pack, but that means you have to stop and wrap and pack it. And so if you're getting, a few a day, that's easier because you can kind of almost production line it and make it move quickly. But then if you start selling too many, then you don't have enough time a day to ship it. And what do you do then? And so it is interesting trying to figure out how can we do the best for our business, however that functions, and not go crazy.
Totally. All right, and where do you sell out of?
I am working my way to wide distribution. And so my books are all my audio, ebook, and both hardcover and paperback are available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, if they are in the audiobook format so far. But I have a personal website I have a shop on my website. So I sell most of those direct as well in all formats. And I'm working behind the scenes to try to get my ebooks and most of my audiobook wide by the end of the year. I don't know if we're gonna make it. And then definitely next year, try to figure out how to get my print books in a wider distribution, just because I kind of want to see how that works. And I like the idea of not necessarily relying on one business alone. But again, hey, Zon pays pretty penny for authors, and there are perks. So I know.
And so what is the motivation to go wide? Just because you don't want the reliance on the Zon?
In part, yes. I don't want to. That was a big thing, especially because every so often you hear the backlashes that will occur where until they start changing some of their policy that hurts authors who are pirated. That's kind of scary because I know a bunch of my works are pirated. They're out there. And I don't want Zon to come back and be one of those, I'm taking, going to tear you apart and take you down. That was really nerve-wracking for me once I realized a lot of my works are pirated. But another factor is I would love for them to be accessible to people in libraries, to people who maybe can't afford to necessarily buy the books and have bookshelves of physical copies, but still have access to either getting them out, renting, checking them out of libraries in physical form, or accessing any of the beautiful, fantastic resources that libraries offer for audiobooks and ebooks. And so that one was something I was like, that would be really nice to do too. So again, will that financially offset what I just did? I don't know. I'm testing it out. But the nice thing is, for the most part, if I don't like it one way, I can always shuffle back. It just takes time and energy and effort. Cries.
Well, good luck. All you can do is experiment, and hey, hopefully you'll grab those stars.
Exactly. That's, that would be a nice thing too. And yeah, you never know. You never know. I've heard successes on all fronts, and I've heard, failed attempts on all fronts. So it's a case by case scenario, and all you can do is do right by you and your business, because writing is a business.
Well, have you gone full time? Are you full time?
I am full time with air quotes. I'm full time between being an author and an artist. So between one and the other, they kind of balance out. And there's still going to be some lean years, and there's still going to be some, bumps in the road. But yeah, so I am on the art side. I do run my own business with those two facets, but it's not 100% writing, if that makes sense.
Do you do your own covers?
I do not do my own covers. The style of art I do is something called reverse glass painting. And it's almost painting in mirror image form on the backside of glass. Glass is a canvas. And I do pet portraiture. So very, very specific stuff. But I'm also an advocate of, hey, there are people who are talented, extremely talented with their know-how on cover design, and especially down to the niche genres. And why not support them? Because they know what they're doing well above and beyond I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how about you? How did you decide on your cover? I don't know if did you have a demo book that you can lift to kind of demonstrate? Haha, because it's tiny in the background. There we go.
Oh, there it is. There's my cover.
I love
That's my first book, Arisen, two-time award winner. And then this one is my second book, Blood Mage, right?
Beautiful.
Both done by Daniel Schmeling, who is a European, I think he's German artist. And, same reason. I picked the most professional guy that I could find, and just those covers are worth every penny. They're so beautiful, so amazing, right? I came to him with like a few ideas of what I wanted, and he just streamlined me into this one, which was great. So, I'm so happy with how it turned out.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, you get what you pay for in one regard. And we say all the time, don't judge a book by its cover, but we judge books by their cover. And so when you have those really nice, eye-catching, well-made covers that truly do represent your genre, subgenre, age bracket, etc., that does a lot to help turn your books and get them in the right hands. And yeah,
for sure.
And how did you end up finding? Because how did you end up finding your editor? Because that's one question I get a lot from newbie writers: is where do you get editors? How do you connect with all these people? Because some people, get formatters, et cetera, so on. And how did you figure out how to do everything? Because it's on you to discover. So.
Yeah, for sure. I actually got a Facebook recommendation for my editor. They are an Australian company called Hot Tree Editing, right? And they charge by the word. I did a few Google searches, and I tested out a fair number of editors, right? And the first place I went to Fiverr, and I paid a young lady hundreds of dollars to edit my book, and she completely broke it, right? Just like, I had to go through the whole thing from page one because I had a working document, and like I had to go through page one and just undo all the changes she made, right? So lesson learned. Then I did a Google search and sent out like 15 chapter ones, and it was like the darkest part that I could find, because there's a lot of really dark subject matter, right? So I think it was like chapter 5. It was a very dark part. I sent it out to a number of editors and just purposefully put mistakes in there. And Hot Tree Editing, they caught everything. They were good with the subject matter. They work with a lot of dark fantasy and romance, and just they're very professional. So I can highly recommend them.
That's fantastic. That's great, because everybody wants, again, you get what you pay for, and in many regards, and do your research. And that's the important thing is, when it comes to editors, one, know the type of editor you're trying to go for, because not all editors do everything, and you just have to know what you're looking for at whatever point you are in that process. But two, test them out. Make sure you like their quality, because a lot of people just hire and go and assume that's what you do. But there are definitely some that are far better than others. And so make Absolutely. Sure you do your due diligence.
For sure. And just, if you don't know what you're looking at, right, find somebody that can be in your corner, right, to help you find the mistakes. You can find people who will help you make sure that you're getting a proper edit, right? And one of the things I haven't done that I'm really contemplating doing for my third book is a developmental edit, right? I've relied really hard on beta readers to do a developmental edit, right? And book one was made significantly stronger because of that, right? And I'm really, really grateful. And the one person in particular was mentioned in the front of the book, right? Book two, I didn't have that person helping me out for that beta read, right? And a lot of people have said that they like book two, honestly, a little better than they liked book one, which is great and getting stronger as a writer. But I have thought about crossing the bridge of getting a developmental edit, because, as an indie author, you're not getting that support that those trad authors would. Right? And so maybe a developmental edit would make a book catch fire but at the same time, I don't know if it is worth the risk, because it would be a big financial risk to sink thousands of dollars into developmental edit and then pay for a line edit as well, you know? So yeah, I don't know. It's just something I'm kicking around in my brain, right? Have you ever used a developmental editor?
I've been very fortunate that both the editors I've worked with in the past do a little bit of everything. Thankfully, the developmental side, again, is something I've never really needed too much so far. With now, like, different projects may need different things, and I'm always open to that. And I think it just depends on the writer, where they are in their career, their writing style, their background, their comfort level, because not everybody may need all the parts. And you can pick and choose what is your weak spot, and you need that help. That's why you can, pick and choose. But if you are a truly beginning writer, I can see why development editors are very important, because you do want to get better at your craft and the craft of writing. And so that's
and I feel like I am a good writer, just to be totally arrogant about it, right? But
writers we can be.
Yeah, for sure. But like, I recently powered through the Red Rising series, and I was like, what made this that good, right? What is he doing that I'm not, right? And like Will of the Many, what made that book just such a delicious, amazing book, right? And so that's my motivation for why I would want to cross the bridge of developmental edit.
Yeah, you always want to challenge yourself to improve, be it, outsourcing and trying to see if that helps, again, any part of your writing business, or just trying to educate yourself personally on how to improve. And I will admit, I've never read a craft writing book. And I recently bought a couple that are fairly popular, because I'm curious. I'm like, is there something that I'm missing that I could utilize from that? But I haven't. I'll admit that. I don't know if I need it or not, but I want to kind of cover my bases, read a couple, and just see if I'm like, oh, I could be doing so much more.
I know. And that's that ever conundrum. I don't know if you're constantly seeking validation as a writer, you know what I mean? Right? Just from somebody to say, yeah, that's a good book. And no matter how many times you hear it, you still question, right? If it could be better, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally. And that, like I did recommend Hot Tree Editing earlier. And one thing I will say, because you had the experience of having a little bit of developmental edit blended into your edit, they are hard line. We are doing a line edit. We're only looking at your periods. We're only looking at your commas. We're not giving you any sort of story structure, which can be very respectful if you know that's exactly what you want to do.
Exactly. And I'm getting to that point where I had one of my editors retire. The other one is kind of moving into retirement. So the idea is, she'll continue on with the series she's already been involved with, but anything new, I'm going to try to find someone else to kind of take on my newer projects. And so I've been doing that fun process of looking for new editors, but I really am gunning for someone who does it all. They're more expensive because they do it all, but just do it all.
For sure. Where are you looking for that person?
Sorry, what?
Where are you looking for that person? Are you going on a platform like Readsy or something like that?
I have been networking with other authors, asking questions like this, but also since I've started this year really heavily getting into toward the latter part of this year, going to conventions and conferences. And I know next year I'm doing even more, et cetera, so on. So when I'm at those events, I'm talking to any editors that are represented there, or asking other authors. And again, if someone really likes their person and they're willing to be like, hey, yeah, here's their information, I'm like, please let me know.
For sure. And that's pretty selfless, sharing your editor's information, even though it means you might have to wait months to get your book edited.
Yes. But the thing is, we all want to have successful careers. And this could be your audiobook narrator, or again, your editor, or your cover design person. And there are going to be those who are like, I don't know what to tell. But, the more work they get,
Yes.
it's better too. But yes, plan ahead and make sure of things. That was one of my audiobooks series. One of my narrators is getting more and more popular, which is great. I'm so happy for her. But the booking time is like growing too. And I'm like, whoo!
Totally.
Make sure my name is in there. And I do see comments popping up. And yeah, it's a nice book. It's saying Megan Mossgrove is editor that Michael's looking at too. So hi, how are you? So there you go. I love sharing editor information and or other information with authors. I'm here to live and learn.
This is Michael's book right here, Paragon Exordium. It is a great 5-star read. If you like epic, fantasy, post-apocalyptic, highly recommend it. It's a big, thick doorstop. Really enjoyed it.
I actually had the pleasure of meeting him face to face at DragonCon this fall, and we both sat on a panel together. So it was very nice. And I love, again, this community is so cool because you can meet people here and then a year or so later, meet them face to face. You're like, oh, well, that's neat. But yeah, so hi there again. But yeah, okay, so we're rounding down the end of the hour. So this was that perfect time where I asked you, Colin, as well as anybody else who's listening, is there any topics you want to cover that we didn't? Any questions you have that you didn't get to ask? Any announcements you want to make? This is that perfect time to do any of the above or all.
Totally. I'm working as hard as I can on book 3. It is coming as fast as possible. Please go pick up Eclipse, which is my prequel novella. It is free on my website. The link is in my bio, right? Sign up. I do 2 newsletters a month, right? And I'll do book reviews and news and updates. And I am working on putting some deleted scenes in there too, which I'm probably going to put on my website, colinjdcrooks.com.
I like it. See, those are the fun things, is like deleted scenes or anything. Like if you're utilizing your newsletter, those are some fun things you can share and be like, hey, if you've read this book, here's something a little special. And again, any of those wonderful ways to be like, hey, also join my newsletter. It's awesome.
Totally. And it's great to have exclusive stuff on the newsletter. Right. And, I really only recommend books on my newsletter that I have read and I have loved.
That's great because, again, that gives you that value of what you enjoy. And if other readers enjoy some of those books too, they're like, oh, okay. They'll hopefully like, and it goes back and forth. If they're liking your works, hopefully they'll like also the books that you like. I don't know.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, no, I was going to say there are so many ways to utilize a newsletter. And again, with the special content, with, building out engagement, I am trying to revamp my newsletter for 2025 because the platform I've been using, which is MailerLite, put out a new version of it. And I'm slowly starting to try to transfer all that fun stuff over to the news side because it does offer a lot of fun things, including, and I'll give this one out because I've said this one multiple times, I love this idea. It was not mine originally. It was shared to me, but they have a questionnaire function. And so what I want to do is build your own story. So I set up the story, put a couple sentences, once upon a time, blah, 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 and then choose A or B and let everybody vote A or B. And then the next newsletter, I take the winning idea and we continue the story for another paragraph and then A or B choice. And it would be a build your own story with your newsletter community.
That is really, really fun.
Right?
That is so fun. Totally. And with the we're saying goodbye to Kindle Vella, unfortunately. So, is there any other way that you could put that up? Or would that just be a newsletter exclusive?
I think that thing would be a newsletter exclusive, though if you like that idea, sorry, I have that little time, unable, sorry, I have to swipe. I don't like this function because it always just wants to make sure I'm still live after an hour. Why? I don't know. But there are a lot of people using platforms like Patreon and Ream and some of these other ones where they do offer things like that, where your community can help, pick characters, they can maybe read preview chapters or where you're work in progress, or they build their own story. So there are a lot of platforms you can do that, do something like that on. It just depends, again, a new platform, another thing to market, another thing to add to your list. And yeah, so you just have to think about that too.
Totally. It is like just the marketing and telling people about your book is a full-time job. And it is one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
Yeah, and the kind of going with that is very true. Going back to what you asked before about those kind of stories, I did do something, and again, I have a Facebook group there where I call my VIP readers, so people who are actually interested in my work and not just stumbling upon my Facebook page. And one thing, now we've done it twice now, is I've let them build and create a monster for a future book series. And so I work them through the process and ask them all the questions of like, is this creature a solitary creature? Is this a communal creature? What environments do they want? And they vote and they choose. And we end up as a community building a creature. And so I will be featuring it in a future book series. But also then as thank yous, I write a short story that also features their new creation in that future world. Lots of futures. And then gift it to them. So it's another fun way to build that readership and get them engaged and having fun and interested in future works. But
totally, that is a really, really cool thing.
Yes, but again, time, energy, effort.
No, totally.
But thank you so much for coming and hanging out. We've hit the end of the hour, and that means it's probably time for me to start hearing my dog. And now we have a foster dog pacing, so I'll have to kind of wrap up and move that way. But I do really appreciate you coming out and talking about your book and all the things you write and getting to know you, and it's been a blast.
I really had an amazing time. Thank you so much for having me on. It was just a wonderful, wonderful chat.
And I'll let you know in the future if I am able to repurpose this at my YouTube channel in a few weeks. I'll send you a message so in case you want to look at it again. I don't know.
I totally will. I'll share it on my newsletter. I'll put it out there on my Facebook page. It'll be great.
Perfect. Well, you have a lovely rest of your day. And since it's evening here, depending on wherever everybody is in the world, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, morning, evening, night, wherever you are. But thank you so much and appreciated getting to talk with you.
You too. Thank you, Katharine. Bye-bye.